It's the rule of nerds.
And today we're talking about the source material for your new favorite movie, Infinity War.
Here we go.
All right, so basically, we all know that Infinity War came from the comic books. Now, what we're going to do today is discuss just how different was it in the comics as opposed to the movies. So, let's start it off. You know that main plot line of Thanos going around collecting Infinity Stones? Well, that comes out of Thanos Quest. It's a 1990 limited series written by Jim Starlin with art by Ron Lim.
But the Infinity Stones, or as they call it in the comics, the gems, they're found in different places in the books as they are in the movies. Now, that's understandable because the story means more if these events are happening to characters we actually care about instead of ones that are yet to be introduced in the cinematic universe.
Okay, so to give you a recap, over at the MCU, the Power Stone was with the Nova Corps in Xandar. The Space Stone was at in the Tesseract with Loki.
Yep.
The Reality Stone was in the Ether with the Collector in Nowhere. The Soul Stone was in Vormir, you know, that nice cameo with Red Skull. The Time Stone was in the Eye of Agamotto with Doctor Strange, and the Mind Stone was with Vision.
Now, if you compare that with the books, there's only one stone that is actually in the same place in the books as they are in the movie, and that's the Reality Stone with the Collector. You know, that character played by Benicio del Toro. He was in Nowhere. Guardians of the Galaxy tried to get it from him.
Yes.
So Benicio previously appeared Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1. We know his character. Now, an interesting fact, in the books, one of the stones is actually in the possession of Jeff Goldblum's character, the character he played in Thor Ragnarok. That's the Grand Master. So it would have been interesting to see what kind of powers he would have had in the MCU. Watch him go head to head with Thanos or some of the Black Order. But you know, the story made more sense the way they told it. We don't need characters like the Gardener or the Runner or the Champion to be introduced to the MCU as we know it. Just doesn't fit.
All right, so in the movies, helping Thanos out on this quest was the dreaded Black Order. Now, these guys, though, are nowhere to be seen in Thanos Quest. Instead, they made their first appearance in Infinity. This is a 2013 limited series penned by, of course, Jonathan Hickman with a rotating team of talented artists. This is, the trade paperback Infinity, where this all happened. It was a big crossover event. It didn't just stick with the actual limited series, but you know, it was branching off with all the other
different titles. Yeah.
Different titles in the Marvel universe.
Now in this book, you get to see how badass the Black Order really is. You know, in the movies, they're kind of like Thanos' henchmen.
Yeah.
You know, and then that has to be that's the case for the movie. There's limited time. But you know, they actually made some changes to it. Like in the books, there are actually 5 members of the Black Order. There's Corvus Glaive, Ebony Maw, Proxima Midnight, Black Dwarf, and Supergiant.
Yes.
But only 4 of them made it to the movie. So Corvus, Maw, and Proxima. I'm not sure if these guys were actually named in the movie.
Yeah.
But in the credits, you can see Corvus, Ebony Maw, Proxima, and Black Dwarf was in it, but his name was changed to Cull Obsidian in the movie credits.
Okay.
Now, in the books, Cull Obsidian is actually a term to refer to any or one of the members of the Black Order. It's kind of interchangeable with Black Order.
Okay. So now this story doesn't have much to do with the movie, actually, aside from having Thanos and the Black Order in there. But this series could have been, the inspiration where they got the idea for the invasion of Wakanda. It's a much bigger deal in the movie than in this book, though. Here, Black Dwarf, without the other members of the Black Order, tries to invade Wakanda, but is fended off by Black Panther and, of course, the Wakandan forces.
Go Black Panther. Now, but the biggest story point of this movie comes straight out of Infinity Gauntlet, a 6-issue limited series published in 1991. It was also written by Jim Starlin, like Thanos Quest. He's also the guy who created Thanos, if we're not mistaken. And with art from, George Perez, legendary George Perez, and Ron Lim. Okay?
So there were actually, a lot of rumors that Infinity War was going to be called Infinity Gauntlet.
Yes.
This is the one that was actually, I think, if I'm not mistaken, it was Zoe Saldana who kind of slipped and called it Infinity Gauntlet,
Gauntlet.
when in fact it was called Infinity War. Now, this was the big secret that comic book fans kept from the rest of the world. That snap at the end of the movie, well, we all know that that was coming because
Yeah.
even the cover of this trade paperback is a spoiler. The book actually starts with him already having all 6 Infinity Stones, which, like we said, was called the Infinity Gems in
Yes.
the comic books.
Now, we won't get too far into the story of Infinity Gauntlet because there may be some spoilers in there.
Who knows?
Yeah. So, despite the changes, they actually did a pretty good job paying homage to this book. There
Yeah.
are very specific scenes in the movie that we enjoyed that are like pretty spot on from the book. The Nebula torture scene is
Okay.
here. Nebula here isn't quite the same Nebula as the one we know in the
Yeah.
MCU, the cyborgy kind of thing. But yeah, well, it's in there.
Yes, and there's also some pretty accurate, lifted straight from the pages Easter eggs here. Like one we love in particular, that scene in Nowhere where the Guardians attack Thanos and he turns Mantis and Drax into a stringy, ribbony form and the other into cubes.
Mm.
Those are exact panels in the comic books. Well, done to different characters, but still a strong shout out to the source material.
Yeah, yeah. Now, another key difference from the books and the movie. Now, in Infinity Gauntlet, Thanos' motivations aren't quite the same. You know, he still wanted to kill half the universe. In the movies, it was kind of it was a little bit nobler. He was
Yes.
trying to save the other half from an existence that was too heavy. By eliminating half, he would have heightened the experience for the rest of it. But very different in the books. He wanted to kill half the universe to impress the personification of death, Lady
Death.
She's literally a character in here. That's why it's a bit of a callback. Also, if you remember that first end credit scene where Thanos appears, he makes his first appearance in the MCU. He has this henchman who tells him something like, "To attack Earth would be to court death."
Yes.
That's exactly what he's trying to do here. He is trying to court, trying to woo the female personification of death, Lady Death.
And it's a huge difference because, like in the movies, Thanos was basically trying to improve the lives of the
Yeah.
other half, that would survive.
Yeah.
In the comic book, he was more like a lovesick puppy.
Yeah.
He was trying to impress, his sweetheart, his
Yeah.
sexy death, all skeleton.
He throws a lot of tantrums
He
too,
throws
like,
a
like
lot of
literally
tantrums,
like a child.
like
Yeah.
a male who's trying to court a female but is being rebuffed, and
Yeah,
therefore
yeah.
he's getting all upset, and therefore it's kind of cartoonish, and you
Yeah.
understand why they went from this
Yeah,
to what they did in the movies.
yeah, yeah.
Now, we move on to another source material that isn't really more a source material, but more of where they got the title.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of people thought they would call it the Infinity Gauntlet, but instead they called it the Infinity War, which is an actual limited series, the actual sequel to Infinity Gauntlet.
Yeah.
Now, it has very little to do with
And-
the movie,
Yeah.
because it was actually more of what happened after this,
Yeah.
which we won't even get into because who knows, it might
It might be the source
the
material
source
for
material
Avengers
for
4.
Yeah, for
you know.
Avengers 4. But basically, Infinity War is all they got, just the title. They didn't hardly got anything from the actual limited series.
And it actually makes a little bit of sense to name it Infinity War. If you notice, in a war movie,
Mhm.
there are a lot of like unearned deaths,
Yes.
surprise deaths, things like that. In most movies, you'd want to give characters like Loki a
Yeah.
really earned death, but here there are a lot of throwaway deaths, and it makes sense because it is like a war movie essentially.
And just to give you a little backgrounder, in the movie, the snap happened at the very end of the movie. Here, it actually happens very early on,
Yeah,
like I'd say maybe this much. And the snap happens at the start of the limited series, and the rest of the series, the rest of the book, was showing you the aftermath.
yeah, yeah.
That's why we were thinking a lot of what will happen in Avengers 4 will probably
Yeah.
be the rest of
Yeah.
Infinity Gauntlet, the limited series.
Have to say, pretty amazing choice by the filmmakers.
Yes.
The way they represented that snap visually, the way the disappearances happened,
Yeah.
had a lot more punch in the movies.
Yes.
Here, yeah, it's a big deal, but knowing that it happens at the start, it's not as gut wrenching as it is in the movie.
Rereading the book,
Mm.
before the movie, it actually seemed a little amateurish. It
Mhm.
didn't feel like, oh my gosh, they're dying, the heroes are dying.
Yeah.
Unlike the movie, even though we knew that this was going to happen, we
Yeah.
were pretty, heartbroken
Yeah.
and destroyed by the end of it.
Yeah. To be fair, this was like 30 years
Oh,
ago
yeah.
almost.
Although
So,
a little piece of trivia, the reason this had two pencilers, you had George Perez
George
and Ron
Perez.
Lim, was of course George Perez became very busy after 4 issues. He kind of like quit,
mhm.
and Ron Lim took over, but also because, according to rumors, he was unhappy with how the story was going. So we don't know if George Perez had his way, because he's also a writer, not just a
Yeah.
penciler.
Yeah.
Who knows? Maybe he had a different vision of what the story should have been, but we'll never know.
Yeah.
So there you go. Those are the differences between the source material, Infinity Gauntlet, Thanos Quest, Infinity War, as opposed to Infinity War, the MCU movie.
Yeah, if you like the movie, check out some of these books.
Yeah.
They're really interesting.
Very different though.
Yeah, it's very different, but especially some of the newer works, probably
Yeah.
they hold up better than some of the old ones. I know some people, the really old books, they don't quite like the artwork
Yeah.
that much. But these comics, these great stories being told in the movies are there because of these comics.
That's right.
So support for that industry. You guys should check some of the books out. Some really great storytelling there.
And because they are pretty different, it's a totally different experience if you go and check them out. So give them a read and tell us what you think about it. So again, you can always put your comments. What about you? Did you have some of the things that you wish they incorporated into the movie?
Yeah.
Other things that you can that we probably missed, similarities, differences? Tell us all about it in the comment section.
Yeah, and let us know what you think the source material for Avengers 4 is going to be. We know Gauntlet is probably going to be
Yes.
a major part of that, but what other things? They don't choose from just one. Like
Nope.
we know they've been doing that. They've been picking and choosing from other places. So
there you go. Again, we would appreciate it if you subscribe to
Yes.
our YouTube channel, The Rule of Nerds. Give us a like, subscribe to us, and also our social media accounts. We have The Rule of Nerds on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Now, for our personal accounts, check out my account. That's at Chico Garcia over at Instagram and Twitter.
and you can follow me M_Volante on Twitter, JM_Volante on Instagram. Nerds out.
Here we go.